So I've made a couple of changes and they're only minor. One is to change where the camera source is, so now it's sitting on the robot and it's running wirelessly to the desktop computer where it's being processed. And the other change is that I've hooked up the when the attention point goes outside the fovea, I center the robot's gaze on this new attention point, so it's in the center of the fovea. So basically there's a direct link between the mode control of the head and the sensory input of the camera. Okay, and I'm going to just show you quickly what it does. There's a few things it does and I want to show you running on it. I'm going to start with the habituation map actually, because there's a couple of cool things which cross my mind that you could do with this. And what it's really nice about is if you push it around, you can actually drive where the robot's looking. So you can make it look all the way to the left. And just note in the camera here, the angle here, so it's quite an unnatural angle. And if we go all the other way, past my finger, past me, hello, all the way around, this is our lab by the way, this is where the Elise project happens, to the other side and the robot can see himself, and that's some of the code. Why is this useful? Well, it occurred to me that you could connect up and hook up, basically make a relationship between the actual absolute angle of the head of the robot and where you choose to place at least the X offset and maybe even the Y offset of the habituation map, such that if the robot's looking all the way over one shoulder, maybe have the habituation map move to one side to try and draw the robot's gaze back to a more natural angle, and vice versa with the other side, and also for up and down. You could do that as well. I've got a lower resolution running this time, so it's 160 and 120 with 15 frames per second rather than 20, and this is why I've reduced the sigma. If I go back to what it was last time, which was around 50, we see the habituation map covers a large part of the screen. There's also a weight here, and the reason I do this is at the moment the center point, the max center point, is actually the very center of the habituation map. That's the top of it, the max value. If you add a weighting, you're basically taking all of the values here and just multiplying them. And what you can do basically is saturate the habituation map. So here it covers everything. But when you bring sigma down, and we see in the habituation map, it's actually you treat everything in here equally, which means it's a bias towards this region, but it's an equal bias rather than a gradient bias which has a center point in the middle. And that's useful when you still want to consider everything in the middle, particularly if you have a fovea region as well. Okay, we can cycle things, so I'm just going to show you cycling. Of course, habituation only resets when you move the robot's head. Actually, this is not clever. I'm going to turn it off and just turn on color tracking. Now I've turned the color tracking on just to focus on red for now. I've turned all the other colors all the way up to 255, so everything's thrown out. And we can see that by just having a weight on color, we can do color tracking with this model. And you can do a few different tracking mechanisms, depends what your features are. But if you just want to focus on one, you can very easily do that with this model. It's generic enough to do this. And of course, you look at how the robot's moving in this camera, you can see it's pretty good. And if I increase the fovea a little bit, or quite a bit in that case, let's bring it down, you can see there's quite an amount of movement that you can do of the object itself while the robot doesn't move its head. Now, I think that's really down to the individual, whether or not they like the robot behaving like this. Remember, it is designed to be social. Let's just get rid of that. So it's going to focus on that chair. Fantastic. I'm going to bring color down and introduce face tracking. And hopefully he gets my face. There we go. So now it's focused primarily on the face. And the habituation is still there. And it's just going to keep following my face around. It's no problem whatsoever for the robot. And if I reduce the fovea, it's going to be more accurate in tracking me. And the reason I do this is because I have a feeling sometimes, like here, I don't think the robot's really looking me in the eye. So I think you need a smaller fovea, and the fovea value is related to the other values of the weight. So there's a relationship there. And again, I think that will be specific to individuals. Maybe people they don't know it's there, they won't care, they won't perceive a difference because you don't show them the difference. But as an engineer, there's lots of parameters you can tweak and find a sweet spot with. And it's just finding those sweet spots that can be a little bit tricky. If I introduce a bit of everything, but I'm going to primarily focus on the face. Actually, no, let's do it the other way around. Let's primarily focus on colour and reduce the face value a little bit. And we still have habituation in there. And we'll turn the cycle on the habituation, so whenever the robot moves its head, you can see that it's also going to reset the habituation. So now it's primarily interested in colours and things that move, which is cool. It's going to keep tracking me. Even if it sees my face, it's going to ignore the fact that my face is there. It's really interested in the colour. Okay, now I'm going to quickly hide that. Come back. And now I cut across. It's going to focus on my face as a result. It's a bit tricky because there's stuff in the background, but there we go. So he's going to focus on my face, and as I move around, he's gone again. He's tracking my face. And of course, if you do it the other way around, you reduce this and you increase the face tracking, he's going to pay most attention to my face and fewer or less attention to different colours. Even if I show the coloured object there, that's what's going on. So it's pretty cool, and it's a very versatile model that you can do with this thing. And you can focus on the skin colour, but the problem is if you look at the skin map, there's a lot of skin-like tones outside as well. I can't quite decide between the face and my hand. There you go. You can track my hand. But the problem is that the skin tone tracking is not really great. It's actually not a fantastic feature to have if you have a room that isn't black, basically, because then if it's black you isolate your skin tones. So there are lots of things you can do with this. I'm quickly also just going to show you this, the AR codes, because I included these. I think these are actually a really novel, neat idea as well, if you introduce these into human-robot interaction. This came from an experiment and was an idea for tracking which child was sitting in front of you. And so imagine you could turn this not only as an AR code, but turn it into a QR code, and what you can have in there is information about the child. It might be information like their age or perhaps their forename, but also information such as their hobbies or things that they like. And if you have a conversational agent, conversational robot, the robot can actually read this, realise someone's in front of it for one. Secondly, if it's a badge, assume that there's a face above it somewhere, so you can locate a face. You know, if you see this, you can gaze up to look at the person in the eye if the face detection hasn't kicked in. And you then have things you can talk about, which you can read from the QR code. And so I see that as kind of be a really cool thing to see in schools, as these robots are slowly making their way into schools and into therapy sessions with autistic children. So yeah, there's so much you can talk about with this model, and I just don't have the time in a 10-minute video on YouTube. But I thought I'd show it running on the robot, show you the frame rate, because some people have wondered what the frame rate on the Nao looks like, particularly when you use wireless frame rates. I'm quite impressed, to be honest with you. I've seen a lot worse from other robots, so this is pretty good. I'm going to kind of conclude here. If you want to know more, I refer you to my website. The link is down below in the description of this video. And if you want to look at the code, and if you're interested to see my coding abilities, because that's what these videos have been for, then please again go to my website, and under the nuts and bolts section you can find information about the things that I've been coding. So that's all. Thank you very much, and take care. Goodbye.